Alright. So I can't see if I'm in there or not. Yeah, that'll work. Okay. So I'll sit a little bit sideways. It's going to be a bit sideways. Okay, so, Steve.
James, you need to go in a little bit more.
In a bit more? How's that? Am I in the shade? I'm in the frame?
It's lucky it's not a contamination. I'll be doing these ones already.
What's the date? I keep looking for the date already. 21 or something. Okay, so, Steve. Let's imagine I have some information but not a whole lot. Now, you mentioned last week when we caught up that the thing that brought you to the fancy Collison psychology practice was this issue with crossing the road and in general these OCDs around doing things in fives.
Yeah, that's right.
So, can you think back perhaps to the last time this happened or a recent time this kind of occurred that we could work through maybe as an example so I can get like an understanding of what's happening?
Yeah, I can. I was so I just got off the train. I was on my way to work, and I was in Martin Place, and I was just about to cross the road. And I always have to wait. But it's very busy with traffic, so I always have to wait until the little man comes.
Yeah.
And so I press the button, I wait for the little man, and I know that I can't go until I've seen him flash 5 times.
Alright, so just again, make sure I understood, because I'm a bit old and I sometimes miss stuff, right? When you say the little man, we're talking specifically that little dude on the what's it called, the light?
Yeah.
We're not talking about like a actual little man or anything.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Okay. So run me through, this happened yesterday, is it?
Yeah, so yesterday on the way to work, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So, you walked up, you were standing there, you pressed the button presumably, you're waiting, the man begins to flash, doesn't flash?
Yeah, so I did press it, so he doesn't flash straight away.
Yeah.
So I have to press it 5 times.
Oh, sorry, so it's not the flashing, it's the pressing.
Oh no, it is the flashing too, yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, sorry, so just to confirm, because again, I'm not perfect, I want to make sure I get it all.
Okay.
So it's the pushing of the button also. Alright, and so you push the button 5 times.
5 times, yeah.
Then you're waiting to cross, but we don't cross until the little man flashes 5
That's right.
times. And at the time when you're waiting, is there anything going through your noggin? Anything
Yes.
in particular?
Yeah. So so I've got to keep watching, and I've got to make sure, because if I'm doing something else and it beeps and I'm not sure if I've missed the first flash, so I have to keep watching to make sure that the flash is, to make sure that I can see what's going, because it flickers from the red through to the little green man. It's the little green man that actually goes to tell me to go forward, so I have to wait until he flashes 5 times.
Okay. And while you're waiting and you're sort of making sure that you've checked it so you haven't missed it, is anything going through your head in particular? Any thoughts, worries, images, urges, anything at all?
So when through my mind at that particular time?
Yeah, like up in, just whatever this stuff is.
When I'm actually doing it, so once I've gone and pressed it, then in my mind I think to myself, got to keep watching, got to keep watching, got to keep watching.
Sorry, gotcha. So you're actually saying to yourself, like, got to keep watching.
Yeah. So I'll tell myself.
Given the pattern, is there any chance that perhaps you're saying got to keep watching in groups of 5 or anything like this?
Sometimes when I get to the 5th one, what happens is I have to say it again and I have to get through it again. So if I only have to say it 1 lot of times, I'll do it like 5 times. But if I get to the end of the 5th one, it still hasn't changed, I have to go through it again, but I make sure I get to 5 again.
Gotcha. So if you were standing there, let's say for 10 minutes, you might go through the whole cycle as many times as required, so long as you finish on a 5th one and it's turned green, then you can go. Okay. And are there any other thoughts going through your head, other things happening up there while you're standing?
I just know that, I'm not sure, but I just know if I don't do it the way that I've got it planned out, so I've got my little way of doing it, I just know something bad might happen. I'm not sure what it is, but I have this thought like something bad might happen if I don't.
And you mentioned you're not sure what that might be, but are we talking like something bad might happen to you, to family, to others? Do we have like a rough idea of what we think might occur? Yeah,
sometimes. So it's not, someone asked me this once about whether I'm going to get hit by the car. I'm not really worried about that. It's not really about the immediate, am I at risk or something like that.
Yeah.
But I know that something bad might happen. Now, it could be to me, it could be to somebody else, it could be to family, I'm not sure.
Okay. So it's not the car specifically, it's the idea of like something bad could happen somewhere in the future.
No.
So for example, oh goodness, I don't know, a certain party might get re-elected in the local election or something, cause great damage to the climate, or Trump might do something It could be anything, or perhaps you might have something go wrong.
No, it's more than that. I noticed once afterwards, and I wasn't sure if I got my ritual right. The first thing I did is I sent a text to my wife just to ask if she was okay, and she sent a text back and she said, "Yeah, I'm actually okay," and I thought it'd be better with that. I do worry that something bad will happen to someone that I love.
Okay, so is it more to do with someone we love?
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Oh. Okay, so I noticed you mentioned it's in the text. I just put a little asterisk on that because I've done me figured I want to come back and ask you about what we do just a little bit. But if you don't mind, just stick with the brain stuff, just because again, I don't want to miss anything, and I want to make sure I've got it right. What we're saying then, to summarise a little bit, when you go to cross the road, you'll press the button roughly 5 times. You look up and you're waiting for it to change. Is that correct? And then once it does, so not once it changes, but while we're waiting, we're saying to ourselves, got to keep watching, got to keep watching, got to keep watching, because we don't want to not know when it changes or miss something.
Exactly.
We say that in patterns of 5. We might repeat that again if it doesn't change by the time we get to the 5th one. And there's kind of an implicature, an underlying kind of belief or feeling that if we don't do this, something bad could happen to somebody that we love. But it's not necessarily like saying, oh, this thing will occur over here. It's just something in the future somewhere.
Yeah, something bad's going to happen somewhere like yeah. But it's not roughly 5 times, it's exactly
Sorry, my apologies, exactly 5 times. Yeah. Okay, so is there anything else that goes on you're not going to wait, or any other things that you do while you're standing there?
I don't have anything else that I'm doing while I'm standing there. I'm making sure that I'm watching the man, waiting for him to go so I can make sure I see each of those flashes.
Yep.
I'm making sure that I'm rehearsing, so you've got to keep watching. And if I do get to the end of 5 and it hasn't come, and I kind of feel like I just need to go through it again, I'm not really sure how long it takes.
Okay, all right. So if I could ask a silly question then, how often do these thoughts occur? Is it every single time you're waiting to cross other thing?
Every single time I'm waiting, but particularly that intersection. That's the one that I think of more. But any time that I'm crossing a road, I need to make sure that I wait until the little man's gone 5 times.
I'm intrigued. Why that intersection?
Well, that's the one that I go to the most. But what happened at that intersection? They changed things. So because everyone's on their phones, they moved the little man. So the little man is up there, but they've also put them down onto the ground. And so for that one, I've got to monitor to make sure they both go at the same time, but I've got to make sure that they're both going. So I can do that. But that's why that one I'm really nervous to make sure, because there's 2. We've got the one on the ground that's sort of going off as well as the one that's going up there.
That's my bad. I didn't ask that before. So are there more than one little man you got to look at?
Yeah. Well, on the ground, it actually says walk it, but it comes at the same time. So it says walk, and it flashes up there, and up there it's got the green men. So together, they're going together. And so I'm just making sure I can see both of them. So that one makes me really nervous. Plus, I have to go through that one. It's the only way I can get to my building from the train.
Okay. So, is it any easier when there's only one little man? Does it make it any harder because you're trying to split yourself between the 2? Or?
Yeah, it is at some places. Like when I'm at home, so I live out in Penrith, and it's a little bit quieter out there, so there's fewer things to try and keep my mind on. So it's easier to monitor and make sure that.
Did you say you live again? Sorry.
In Penrith.
Sorry, Penrith. Or?
Penrith.
Yeah. No, sorry. I thought you said Penrith. I just wanted to check which part of Penrith you were coming from.
No, I've been practicing.
Good. Okay. Good. And if I ask another silly question, so you mentioned this happens every time. How intense are these thoughts? Like, if I said to you, how much do you kind of believe them? How real do they feel? Like, very, very real, not really real, maybe kind of real.
Do you mean how real is it that something bad might happen if I don't wait until the little man goes 5 times?
Yeah, roughly speaking,
100%.
100%. Okay, so you're not going to take in any risks here with the kids or anyone.
No, I just know.
So let's say, imagine a situation where you miss one of the lights. Would you just wait and start afresh?
I've done that.
Yeah,
I've had to do that before.
Yeah.
And I do need to start afresh.
Yeah. Okay. So definitely 100%. And roughly speaking, because I know we're not keeping a time, but how long will these thoughts last, do you think? Do they kind of go away once you cross the road? Do they kind of linger? Do they start? What kind of happens in terms of length?
If I've gone across the road and I know, and I can feel it because it just feels right. So if I get across the road and I know I've done my count right, and I know I've done my press right, and I know that I've been able to monitor both the lights right, okay, and I can feel it and I feel okay, and I can go up to my office and I'm all right then. If I'm not sure, or if I feel like I've got it wrong, there's a couple of other things that I can do.
So again, I'll just I'll asterisk that, 'cause I mean, you mentioned there's a couple other things you can do. I just want to make sure I get this part right. So what we're saying is, the thought will dissipate if you cross the road, if everything's gone to plan.
So if I can do my things,
Yep.
if I've got my little method, if I can do my method right, then yeah, I'll take it.
And if we can't, that might hang around for a while.
Oh yeah.
And how long are we talking about?
It won't stop hanging around until I do my things again.
Alright, so persist indefinitely kind of thing until dealt with.
I've never tested it.
Well,
I'll do that.
You know, I mean, listening to what you're saying, I think if I was crossing the road and I had a thought in my mind that was 100% someone or my family could get hurt or could die, so I don't think I'd test that either. It seems quite rational. It seems quite appropriate. So from there then, if I could ask another couple of questions, in terms of what you're doing, in terms of what you're feeling, I should say, rather, like in here, when you're going through this, what kind of physical sensations do you experience, if any?
Well, so when I'm always, because I'm already thinking about it, when I get off the train, when I walk up from the station at Martin Place and then when I get out into the open, at that stage, like I'm aware of it and I've got like a kind of a feeling in my belly, like a kind of bit of a butterfly feeling. But by the time I actually get and am waiting, I can feel my heart's beating a bit faster and I definitely feel a bit tense.
And you mentioned you feel a bit tense, but you kind of shook your hands. Like, is that tense as in tense, or tense like hands shaking?
I can feel it in my arms. Yeah, I can get shaky. I can feel it in my arms. I can get shaky. But I feel maybe I'm in kind of on edge.
On edge, we might describe it as, yeah. Sometimes people, like when you're describing the stuff you're saying, sometimes people say, you're not saying you might feel this necessarily, but sometimes people will tell me, they might also get like a kind of like a sick, nauseous feeling in here, anything like that.
For me, it's like a fluttery thing. I definitely couldn't eat, wouldn't feel like to eat at that particular time. I don't think I'm going to vomit or anything like that. I'm just aware of it.
You've never vomited before?
No, I haven't vomited. Well, I have vomited before.
No, I know, so at the lights, yeah, no.
Like
I mean,
that.
obviously last weekend when you were drinking everything.
Yeah,
that's
different set of lights.
Different set of lights, yeah. That's right. And what about like sometimes people say, they feel a bit dizzy or like their head's spinning, a bit lightheaded and that kind of stuff.
It does happen, but it's usually like if I get it wrong and I feel like I've got it wrong, and because there's other things that go on there. So yeah, sometimes like when it gets really bad, I can get like that.
If we get it wrong, so maybe it will escalate.
Yeah.
Okay. So if it does escalate, then we might add in something like some lightheadedness. Anything else? Do you ever notice sometimes people find themselves breathing quite a lot, or getting quite sweaty, hot, this kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think my breathing does start to change a little bit. I haven't noticed myself sweat. The shaking will increase a little bit more. But other stuff as well. I don't know if this is your body, but that's when my mind starts to race a bit faster.
So the thoughts start turning over a bit more?
Yeah, it goes really quick.
Okay, but that's if we have a problem getting it done, or if it can't be done.
Yeah, so if it can't be done. So there's times where I can't do it the way that if I was there by myself and I could just do it, it'd be fine. But there's times where you just can't do it and get it exactly right.
Right. Well, what you might do, if you don't mind, I've got a little thing in my head coming up around like what kind of makes it better, what kind of makes it worse. So I could ask a couple more questions. I might ask you something like, well, what happens when you can't get it right, or what happens if this kind of thing happens there?
Right.
But before we jump to that, you mentioned there's some stuff that you do to kind of get through it. I think you said before, for example, you were, I can't read my hand up, that doesn't help me at all. No, I can't get it. But you mentioned you're specifically looking at it. Is there anything you do as you're crossing the road or to kind of make this more manageable, to make it less stressful?
Yeah. So there's a few things that have to happen. Once I start getting across the road, I need to get across the road from gutter to gutter in 5 steps. It must be in 5 steps from gutter to gutter.
Interesting, okay. That must be, I imagine, practically difficult at times, depending on the size of the road.
But I've got long legs. What's difficult is it's a busy place, right? So there's lots of people around, and then sometimes people aren't looking where they're going. If I need to change direction, that can make it difficult.
Okay. What do you do if you can't get across in 5 steps?
So I've got to do the whole thing again. So if I get across and it's more than 5 steps, then immediately I go to the other lights and I press the button 5 times and I wait for the little guy to go.
So would you potentially go one side of the road, then back, and then...
I have to go back and then I have to do the whole thing again. I have to get it right to get to my office.
Sorry, I didn't ask that very well. What I mean is, do you do the ritual going back and going across?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Is there anything else that you do to make it a bit easier, to make it more manageable? Do you scan for people, try and cross into
I
different
do try and
environments?
stand as close as I can to the button, because what happens is when I get it just right and I've done my 5 presses, and then someone comes up and presses the button, and then I need to do it 4 more times. Or sometimes people come along and they go bang, 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 and they'll do it 3 times, and I've got to bring it to 5.
Yeah.
So then what happens is I've got to monitor, like, how many times did they do it, and sometimes they do it kind of, they've just got their hand on it, I'm not sure whether they're doing it, that sort of stuff. And so I've got to come back and do it, and obviously it looks a bit weird when I'm coming back and kind of pressing that button again and again.
So you're kind of like the button keeper of buttons.
Probably looks that way.
Okay, so because what we're saying is it's not just necessarily you having pressed it, it's the button must press 5 times. And if I was to go and press it once, you would need to press it 4
I just need to bring it to 5, yeah.
Do you ever lose count?
Well, that's what I worry about. So I'm not sure, when I get across, it's like, I'm not sure, the only way I can tell is if it feels right. When I get across and I feel right, it's okay. Maybe sometimes it just doesn't feel right. I can feel it in my body that I need to do it again.
So if I just ask you a silly question, go back, and I was asking about what was going through your movement, could I perhaps add in one around, like, what if I haven't pressed it 5 times, or what if it hasn't been pressed 5 times?
Yeah, or what if that guy pressed it more than that, or what if I didn't see, I maybe wasn't checking, because there's so much to keep an eye on. I've got to keep an eye on the button, I've got to keep an eye on the ground, I've got to keep an eye on the little guy I'm listening up to, and they're not in time with the flashes.
Okay. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot of what if, a lot of perceptual stuff you're trying to monitor. But you mentioned you're kind of basing it on a feeling afterwards, so like as long as it feels okay, we're right to
I can tell, I can feel it when I'm good.
Alright. And any other behaviours you do, anything else you do to keep it together, keep calm, keep cool, get yourself across the road? Do you ever push people out of the way? Kind of like, this is Sparta.
Look, no. I haven't ever tried to, I haven't barged anyone or anything like that. I do try and position myself a bit strategically so I can stay sort of close to the button.
Yeah.
And I used to try and keep so I just had my hand on the button, but people would come and either push it anyway, or and then I wasn't sure if I was holding onto it, it just didn't feel
Push
right.
your hand. That's weird.
Or well, there's the big silver one, right? So they'll come and
Yeah.
this is Martin Place.
Oh, sorry, that makes way more sense, doesn't it? Who would do
Yeah, a
that?
lot of affluent people.
Yeah, that wouldn't have it in Penrith, would they? Maybe they understand manners out there, mate. Boundaries.
Well, I do all right.
Okay, good. So then, before we jump in, let me just clarify, because there's a lot of stuff there, and I want to make sure I've got it all. What we're saying, if I try and summarise it, this happens whenever you go to Crossroad. What we're saying is, if we go there, we're thinking that basically the first kind of thought is I've got to get this right because various things could go wrong. And then from there, we're trying to make sure that we're watching the lights 5 times. So we don't miss it. We've got to make sure the one on the ground is okay. We've got to make sure the button is correctly pressed. We've got to make sure we get across the road in 5 steps. If somebody else presses the button, we've got to fix that. If we miss one of these, we've got to reset the thing. If we get across in less than 5 or more than 5, we've got to start again. There's a lot of things and monitoring. And it happens every single time.
Every single time.
We are 100% behind it. And it tends to persist until it's done properly.
Yeah, I must do it. Yeah.
And the process itself sounds a bit stressful. You're on edge, you're kind of nervous, you're uncomfortable. We feel a bit, fluttering in the tummy, a bit tense and kind of shaky. And if we don't get it right, if some of these things get impeded, this will get worse. And we'll find ourselves getting more uncomfortable. You might start to notice that your heart beats a bit more, the breathing maybe, but not necessarily sweatiness. So not everything that might be. And if that doesn't go exactly as we want, we'll actually do the entire ritual again.
Yep.
So potentially you could be there for how long do you think, going back and forth, like on a bad day?
So I had a performance review a week and a bit ago, where because that week I'd consistently been late about an hour late each time. So there've been times where 2 times last week where I had to go back and do it and then go back and do it. And so if I'm not, if I don't actually get it right, I can back and forth, and the whole thing there can take me something simply 40 minutes, so I can be within an hour late. So yeah, it can take a long time.
Alright, so we could do that for quite a while. But again, all of these things will go away once you are sure it is done, once we get that feel that everything's okay, and then we know that everyone's going to be alright. Okay, so I think I have a bit of an idea roughly of what's going on. I want to ask a couple of questions around things that might make it better or worse, right? So, are there any situations in which this would be more difficult to kind of get through? Like, for example, if it's raining, or if a car goes past, or, are there things that could happen that make it harder or more challenging for you?
If it's raining, I'll get wetter. It's uncomfortable, but I know that I just have to do it. I think the thing that makes it worse is the more people that are around. Like if I'm there, sort of right on, like between sort of 7:30 and 8, there's lots and lots of people getting to work at that time. Everyone wants to push the button. That makes it worse. Sometimes if I stay back, and I'm trying to make up time in the evening, so if I stay back and I'm leaving a little bit later, like if I'm leaving sort of at 6 or later, there's a few less people around at that stage, and so it's a little bit easier to get through it.
So more people definitely makes it harder. Do you anything else?
So more people, if they're touching the button, I need to even it up. That makes it worse as well. I think I feel like I've got to get it right more when I know, like I'm looking at my clock watch and I'm thinking, okay, it's, I'm late now. I know the boss is going to be worried and that sort of stuff. That I get more stressed about that. Sometimes like I'll flick a text to say, oh look, I'm running a little bit late, even though I can see the building from where I am, I just can't get to it.
So things like time pressure might make it worse, other people. And then presumably the absence of those things would make it easier, so if you had 5 hours to get to work and there was nobody inside, it'd just be a breeze, so to speak, or as easy it could be. Yeah,
I've thought about that, and I've even thought I might actually have to start catching an earlier train just to be able to do that,
Alright. Okay, so from there, is there anything that would trigger this off in particular other than crossing the street? I know we're focusing on crossing the street right now, but goodness, I'm just trying to think, like if you had to cross a street that didn't have a set of lights, is that going to cause problems?
So if I need to cross a street and there's no lights there are some other things that I can do. So when I'm checking the traffic, you've got to check both ways, but I always make sure I check both ways 5 times, and if I can do that and get the clarity before anything's coming, then I can get across safely. So I can still do things in 5 around that. And 5 at the moment, 5's my number, so 5 at the moment. When I'm at work, if I need to photocopy something, I press the photocopy button. I need to press it 5 times, even though the first time makes it go, I sort of just sit there quietly doing it 4 more times so that I know that I've been able to do that and just feel better about that.
So what we're saying is 5 is not specific to crossing the road, 5 is a problem more broadly.
That's the one that seems to be, and it's getting more and more elaborate, over the weeks, but 5's my number at the moment,
Right. And look, normally what I might do, just breaking roll for a second, if halfway through something like that come up, you might be tempted to chase off down the 5, and perhaps should. We've got a bit backwards because we've asked for a specific thing first. So presumably we would know that 5 is an issue all around. So what you might do is I'll pretend like we'll say something like, okay, so what I might do just for the sake of what I'm trying to get at here, I might just put an asterisk on that. I will come back and explore 5 more broadly. But in terms of just crossing the road, we're saying the patterns of 5 is certainly get in the way of crossing the road, and that's related to the lights. But there are other things that you could do as well if there was no set of lights. So it's kind of any road you're crossing. But again, we might chase down other roads now, because it sounds like this particular one is the one you've got to get through every day, at least once, I'm presuming, in the morning, once in the afternoon, if not more times. And that's kind of the one we want to get sorted first. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So. Okay. So look, I think I have an idea. So what I'd like to do, I'm going to present to you a bit of a summary of what I have, so that I can check with you to make sure I haven't missed anything. And I think what I might do, would you be okay if I drew it up on the board a little bit? So what I might do, if I get you to shuffle around a section, I'm just going to grab a coloured pencil or a texter. And let's just see if I've got this. Again, I'll make sure. And please, as we go, if anything's not right, just let me know and just say, no, that's not quite right. But let's just say, if we put up here, we start with, what is that? Okay, that's fine. Let's make sure that's okay. No, so I'm worried that's not going to rub off everything. Yeah, okay, no, scrap that. Okay, we'll do it across here. Sorry, I have to. Oh, what if I use blue? Maybe it'll work better with blue. Because people are very. Blue's worse, you think? Yeah, okay, that's just Alright, sorry, we won't be able to see it just on the bottom of the camera. Yeah, if you're like, well, you'd probably put it on me, I suppose. I'm the important one here, aren't I?
That's right.
Not in the classmate, just in this particular example, sorry. So we said the event is crossing, right?
Yep.
And you mentioned the thoughts that kind of go through your head. There's a lot of what ifs.
Yeah.
So, and we're checking, I think, wrote it down, we said we're checking to make sure that we're seeing the little man in groups of 5. So we're actually getting thoughts like, I've got to keep watching.
Yep.
Got to keep watching, etc. Right? And we
That's
say that in lots of 5s.
Times 5, that's right.
Yep. But there's also what if kind of thoughts popping up around that, like what if someone else has pressed the button? What if I've missed the man?
Yep.
What if I haven't taken the 5 steps, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of beneath that somewhere is this belief or thought around harm coming to others, yeah? And
Yes.
specifically the family.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to put a shortened version, but is that a fair summary so far?
That's a good summary, yeah.
Have I missed anything really critical? Or?
No, I think you've got that right.
And then you mentioned in terms of what it does in here,
Mm.
the heart can start to beat a bit.
Yep.
You start to get a bit tense. I think you said it was like you described like being on edge,
Yeah.
or maybe a bit shaky.
Yeah, I do get shaky.
And then what we kind of do. Oh, let's think. There were a few things, weren't there? We were sort of guarding the button and checking to make sure that no one else had touched it, and then topping it up, so to speak. If need be, we were strategically positioning on the street.
Mm-hmm.
Position. And then you had to take 5 steps to get across.
5 steps to get across.
Yeah, or I've written like 8 there, sorry. 5 steps. Is there anything else that I've forgotten there? Any other important?
And so, well, you've got top up there, so I've got to do the 5 times press. Is that?
Yeah. Oh, of course,
That's
sorry.
part of it, yeah.
Like that, mate. Of course, the 5 press. Even if no one was around, we still have to press it 5 times.
Yeah.
And we're looking as well at the 2 things.
Yeah.
So we might have that like an action because we're sort of doing something.
Yeah, I've got to monitor it, yeah.
And then afterwards, if all this goes to plan, how do we feel next?
If it all goes to plan,
Yep.
I feel good. I start to feel much more relaxed.
Relieved?
I feel relieved, that's the right word.
Relaxed?
Yeah, I do feel relaxed. I've still got my work stuff that I start thinking about, but I'm not worried about that something bad thing happening anymore.
Okay, and so we actually lead on to thoughts then about work, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of moves off.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
So, with all that said, I've got good news and bad news. Which one would you like first?
Give me the good news first.
Okay, well the good news is that I love your shirt. And you get onto work when this works. So this works really well when it works, is that right?
Yeah,
But when it doesn't, you mentioned it kind of escalates.
that's right.
And in fact, if we don't feel relieved, if this didn't work, we'd feel much worse. And this would kind of cycle back around, and it would get worse and worse and worse. And that could go on for like an hour, back and forth across the road, a nightmare. And I suspect the reason this is occurring is because what we're getting here, this is a really important part here. Just here, this little bit here, we feel like there's a sense of relief. Because what that is kind of showing us is that this stuff feels like it's prevented this stuff from occurring. So our body's kind of going, oh, threat is gone, problem's gone, good stuff. In future, brain, do this stuff more. And that sounds a bit convoluted, but I can kind of demonstrate that for you if you like. So let's hear it. Let me ask you a question. How much money do you make per hour, kid? Not per hour. How valuable is $100 to you?
Very valuable.
So if I gave you a button, and every time you pressed it, just a $100 note appeared in your head, what would you do with that button?
I'd press it.
How many times?
5.
Interesting, why 5?
It just feels right. I'd press it as many times as I could to get as much as I could get.
In groups of 5, perhaps.
In groups of 5.
Yeah, it's good. So that's one way we learn things. That's what we call positive reinforcement. A positive where you do something, you get something good, so we do it again. So the more money we get, the more we press the button.
Right.
How much do you enjoy your work? Do you like work?
I like what I do, yeah.
Is there something you don't like doing?
I don't like the administrative part of it, yeah.
Beautiful. Imagine I press that button and someone does all the administrative work for you.
Awesome.
What would you do with that button?
Press it.
Press
Every
it
day.
every
Yeah.
day, right? In groups of 5, assuming. Because there's 5 days in a week. Illuminati confirmed.
You just give me a new ritual.
Well, we'll fix that one. So that's another form of, no, that's what we call what we call negative reinforcement. It's where we end up doing something more because we're actually taking away something unpleasant. So it's like take away the unpleasant work and press the button. I think what's happening here, David, is that these activities, when they work, are taking away this unpleasant feeling. And kind of, so in a sense, we're getting like a little bit of negative by taking this away, a little bit of positive by bringing in some of the relief. Right? So naturally, every time we go to crossroad, we end up wanting to do this stuff more. And so I suspect perhaps that maybe you didn't do all of these right from the first time you had this thought. Maybe some of these have kind of developed over time.
Yeah, it's gotten much more complicated now,
Yeah. So I think what might be occurring, kind of ironically or perhaps paradoxically, is by virtue of doing this stuff and feeling safe, our body is trying to keep us safe because it kind of feels like this is like a tiger or a lion or something. But in reality, it comes back every single day. And because it comes back every single day, we do it again, and we do it again and again. But we never get a chance to actually test out whether or not these things are going to occur. Now, I'm not suggesting we should put your family in harm's way, because you mentioned it's 100%, right? 100%. But we don't know if perhaps we need to see all these things, or if we don't monitor them perfectly, then we're going to miss them.
Right.
And I thought what I might do, perhaps I'll draw it up in a slightly different way. I might take a photo of this for the client before we rub it off, that kind of thing. I'll just rub some of this stuff off for a second. Because I have a rationale, mate, for what I would suggest we do here. And that is a little thing that we call exposure therapy. Have you come across this before?
I think I've heard the word, yeah.
Well, I'd like to try, I'll draw something up. I think if I was to draw that picture a little bit differently, I might put your anxiety or the fear or whatever the negative kind of feelings are on one side, and we put time down the bottom. And I think what's happened, again, I'm kind of just chucking out an idea, so if you feel like it doesn't gel, we'll try something else. But I think what's occurring is we're sort of cruising along about here, get off the train, the mind starts to tinker. You tell me, when you approach that road, where does your uncomfortableness go? Does it up, down, sideways?
No, it goes up, yeah.
Straight up, like how quickly?
Look, as I'm getting closer to it, and I need to get myself into, I need to get focused, I need to go through the things, I'm starting to monitor that sort of stuff. So, look, it's 20 seconds from when I come out of the underground to getting to the road, and from that point it just starts to escalate to the point that I know I need to go through the stuff.
It's not, we're talking a couple of minutes, not long then.
No, it's not long, no, it's pretty quick.
So it's like it goes up there.
Yeah.
This kind of thing. And it feels like, I mean, given that we think this is definitely going to happen, I imagine, you tell me if I'm wrong, there's a perception this isn't going to go away. It's not just going to, oh, look at that, what an interesting feeling, and it's going to pass magically.
No.
So there's this kind of a point where our brain goes, look, if I don't do something about this, this is just going to go on forever, right? And in fact, everybody has a different point where that happens. But I suspect what's occurring is our brain is kind of doing, okay, I've got to do something about this, and that's when we start to do these behaviours. And you mentioned if you get them right and the ritual works, we feel relieved afterwards.
Yeah.
So this stuff kind of drops down. Yeah? Now, this is a classic kind of negative reinforcement looking profiling thing, whatever we call it, in the sense of here we have something bad, we kick in and do this ritual, something goes away, and so next time we want to do it again. But there is a savage aspect of this particular part, I'm afraid, in that our body produces a lot of physical responses that don't go away quite as fast as we might want them to. So this process is meant to keep us safe from things like bears and wolves and tigers that we might see once a month. But you cross the road how often?
Every day.
Every day,
Every
sometimes
weekday.
multiple
Yeah,
times.
multiple times, yeah.
So you might cross the road, dozens of times compared to how many times you see a wolf. And so what happens, unfortunately, is that the stuff that underlies this, the physical stuff, which I won't bore you with, but the physical stuff, it doesn't go away as quickly as the feeling does. And what actually happens is a little bit of it gets left behind. So there's an ever so slight increase in this kind of baseline level of jitteriness. So when you then go to cross the road the next time, you come across something and it goes up, our brain goes, oh, we better get rid of that very quickly. So it promotes more of those behaviours, which we do, and if they work, we feel better. But of course, then we have to do it again. And every time we do this, things get a little bit scarier and a little bit more stressful. And in fact, if I was to draw that right from the word go, it would look something like this, where we get a gradual increase across time. And you might have already seen this. Have you seen a scary movie lately?
Scary movie lately. I don't know that I have.
Okay, well, that's okay. Just trash that terrible example.
Yeah.
But let's just take this and the first time you came across the road, I suspect perhaps it wasn't as scary ever so many years ago as it was to the one you did yesterday.
Mm.
And I imagine there wouldn't have been as many rituals.
That's right. No, there wasn't.
Yeah.
There
Because
wasn't.
what's happened is with every subsequent increase, our body is getting a little bit more stressed, and the peak is getting a little bit higher. And as we get a little bit more and a little bit higher, our brain interprets that as being more significant and more stressful and says, we've got to do more, we've got to do more, we've got to do more.
Mm.
Now, with that all said, there is an answer here. There's good news. I said there was good news and bad news. I'm mostly just giving you bad news so far. Here's the good news. We can fix this. Okay, what you're describing is very amenable to intervention, but it is a bit scary.
Okay.
So imagine a scenario in which we had the same base, the same peak, but we did nothing. I got you to not do any of the rituals and instead just cross the road.
Right.
And I blindfolded you, for some magical reason I blindfolded you, pushed you across the road, disrupted everything. And then I said, let's go get ice cream. And I deliberately distracted you and got your mind off things. What do you think would happen to your body, to this physical stuff?
If we did that,
Yep.
just that way, I think that it would go through the roof, James.
Yes, good. And then what?
I think it'd stay through the roof, James.
Forever.
Forever.
So it would go up,
Yep.
and just keep going up,
Yep.
and off it would go, right? Would you be surprised to know that's physically impossible?
I would be. I haven't tested it, but I would be.
Would you like to test it now, in a gentle way?
Okay.
Yep, brilliant. So here's what we do. If you don't mind, everyone can do it with me for that. I love this one, it's a lot of fun. Take your hand for me, just place it out in front of you.
Okay.
And shake it a little bit. And then shake it as fast as you can if you wouldn't mind. Can you shake it any faster?
Yes. That's
Maximum shaking, that's it.
That's
Terminal
it.
velocity.
That's
Right,
it.
just keep doing that, don't stop. Don't stop doing that. What's going to happen, do you think?
I'm going to get tired.
You're going to get tired. How long do you think you can maintain that?
A few more minutes.
Alright, and then eventually what will happen to our arm?
It'll get tired and fatigued and it'll stop.
Yep, and we'll post that, and you can rest your arm there. Now, the funny thing about this feeling is it is exactly the same as your arm.
Okay.
Your body can only feel that response for so long. Your heart can only beat so fast, we can only burn so much stuff, right? So what we know from research is what actually happens is it feels like it goes on forever, but in reality it kind of hits a peak, plateaus out, and then it slowly comes down over time. And if we repeat this process, magic happens. In that the second time, we hit a peak a little bit faster, we plateau a little bit quicker, and we come down a bit quicker. And in fact, if we repeat this many times, again and again and again, eventually at some future date, we get a little ripple of discomfort and then we move on, it doesn't bother us at all. And what I'm going to do, I'll stop there because I'm now starting to move into exposure, right? So, what do we think so far? Good job. Good job. Give Steve a round of applause. Good job, Steve. I'll pause that there because naturally what